Hello and thanks again for tuning in. I know I've been dragging my feet on making a video on what I've decided to buy in terms of my ultimate wildlife and landscape camera and then the lenses to go with that ecosystem. I think it's obvious, if you've been watching my videos for the last few months, that I've purchased a Nikon Z8, the 800mm 6.3 PF lens, and the 24-70 2.8. But I will do a video soon on my Fujifilm kit, what I've decided to keep, what I've decided to sell, and my reasons why I've gone for this mix of cameras and lenses, and also what it means for the future. But today I wanted to share my thoughts on why there's so much of a buzz and so many people changing from other systems to Nikon and that ecosystem, especially for the Z8 camera. And my first point here is it feels great. Nikon knows how to make a camera you want to pick up, which is super important. And in a recent video, I actually heard somebody say that Nikon knows how to make grips, and I actually could not agree more. The ergonomics are incredible. Saying that, I do have big hands, so please, if you have smaller hands, get into your local camera shop, try it before you buy it. Don't just take somebody on YouTube's word for it. Make sure it's right for you. That's the most important thing. But in some videos earlier this year, I was talking about the Fujifilm ergonomics and how I prefer shooting with the battery grip on my X-H2 or X-H2S, especially with longer lenses, because it just balances the camera and lens out a lot better. And given I've got larger hands, my fingers just don't slip off the edge of the camera, which is also a comfort thing. And when doing my multi-day hikes and traveling, size does weigh into it, and the weight. It makes a big difference. But for 95% of what I'm doing, I prefer a bigger body in line with the Nikon Z8, the GFX system from Fujifilm. The Canon R5 is great ergonomically as well, but it is starting to get a little smaller. So I understand that this may stray from the benefits of mirrorless as a value proposition, but I love a tool that feels great to use and is built like a tank. And I am of the opinion that gear does matter, and I know that this is quite a sticking point with a lot of people, but it's okay to love what you're using, to love what it looks like, to love what it feels like. So when I pick up the Z8, not only do I know it's going to do a super job because its specs are off the charts, but I also feel inspired to use it. It feels intuitive, and it's also great in the hands, and you just want to pick it up. And I get the same feeling when I use some of my older X-series cameras, like the XT4 and things like that. They have that nostalgic film camera piece to them, with the toggles and the dials and the buttons. So that also inspires me. So it's that same feeling, but there's a different camera system and a different way of working that's inspired me to pick up the Z8. Now my second point is the Nikon Z8 is a camera that I feel has the least amount of compromise. So when doing my research and comparing a multitude of cameras and lenses and brands, I found that it made sense to go with the Nikon Z8 for me. Now I'm predominantly doing wildlife and landscapes on YouTube as part of this channel, but as part of my job, I shoot a lot of commercial work like product, on location, and portraits, a lot of people, things of that nature. And therefore I was looking for something, that elusive camera, if you will, that did it all. We all know that doesn't exist, but getting as close to that as possible for my use case. But the main reason for looking elsewhere was my location and the wildlife within it. And I spoke about this last week, or my last video. Where I'm currently shooting, the wildlife is extremely small, and the birds live in dense bush and in the mountains. So I don't get much light during the peak birding times. So the Fujifilm X-H2S and the 150-600 at f8 wasn't ideal. New Zealand birds can be tiny, so I need something that has quite a long reach, and I would also prefer a prime lens. And yes, I could have adapted something else to the Fuji system, another brand, but I decided I like the larger sensor in conjunction with the 800mm prime at 6.3, and that was a great combination for this long light, but also getting the reach that I desired and that prime lens look. And let me stress, the right combination to meet my needs. And I understand if you're from another part of the world and you're shooting different birds or bison or muskox or deer or whatever you're shooting, your lenses and focal range requirements are going to change completely. And also, the aperture that you might need to shoot at or you could get away with. So you need to make sure that you're kind of working back from what you require to get your to get what you're after, and then find a solution to meet those needs. So make sure that you're not just listening to people on YouTube banging on about the best wildlife lens, because that wildlife lens may not suit your needs and may not get you the required results. So if you're into wildlife, landscapes, videography, astro, portraits, pets, commercial work, it's a phenomenal option. The only thing I would say, if you're into like straight up just travel or weddings, it's still an amazing option, and I'll be using it for my travel. But in terms of the size and weight, just check that before making a decision and make sure it's right for you in terms of that mirrorless camera that's going to work in those scenarios. My third point is the lenses. Nikon knows their target market, and this is what I love. I'm glad Nikon aren't afraid to know who they are and who their customer is. They have a loyal and proud group of wildlife and sports photographers using their gear for a very long time. They also had a beast of a camera, the Nikon Z8, which was a great camera and still is. There's still people buying them secondhand, and a few people lucky getting them newer. And therefore, I believe they've really leaned into this market with their lens manufacturing to create some incredibly lightweight and sharp resolving lenses. And some of these options being, the 400mm, 600mm, 800mm PF lenses. The 800mm is what I've got. Some versatile zoom lenses like the 100 to 400, the 180 to 600, and then also the 400mm TC and the 600mm TC as well, at the pricier end obviously. They also did all of this since 2018, which is 6 years ago. So to put that into perspective, Fujifilm released the X Pro 1 in 2012. They had 6-year head start as a mirrorless company, but still only have really the 200mm f2, 100 to 400mm, and the 150 to 600 for kind of wildlife needs. Which, don't get me wrong, they're amazing lenses. Fujinon won't disappoint, but we are lacking some of those longer primes for the X mount system. But not all hope is lost. Given the GFX just had the addition of the 500mm 5.6, I think it's just there's only going to be time until the X mount system will have something similar. I'd say to be around that 500mm mark, given what Sigma and other manufacturers are coming out with for the Sony system. It just seems to be that sweet spot in terms of small and lightweight, option that fits the Fujinon or Fujifilm ethos in small, lightweight, mirrorless, portable, and also hitting a certain price point, which is what they consider when they're producing a new lens or camera system. But it just caught me by surprise. I did think that they would have something, released a little closer to the release of even the XH1, because that was spouted as the new age in autofocus for them, something that you could use for, birding and wildlife and sports. So I'm surprised that something didn't come sooner, but it'll be great, to see, what happens in the future with Fujifilm. Nikon also has the benefit of legacy F-mount glass, and there is just some great deals to be had. Obviously, most of these, secondhand now, but you can just grab that FT-Z adapter, and Bob's your uncle. You've got a million different options for all your photography needs. The PF lenses, though, are the reason I'm using the Nikon system. They're so light. They're a little slower than the F4 cousins, but they still resolve and pop like a prime should. Plus, they don't cost the earth, which is amazing. I can hike with my 800mm in hand or in my pack, and it's not a chore. It doesn't feel heavy, which means I can get into more extreme locations without breaking my back, which is important to me and a lot of other photographers that you see on YouTube who are having back issues. But outside of the wildlife space, though, they have a brilliant range of Z lenses catering to all needs. They've done an incredible job leaning into certain niches like wildlife, but also making it a system for all photographers and having that well-rounded system so you can kind of meet all your different needs as a photographer and a creative. It's just such a great system. I've been extremely happy with it so far, but as I discussed earlier, you've just got to make sure that it's the right tool for the job for you. So you've got to look at what you want to achieve from your photography, from your videography, from your wildlife or your landscape or your nature photography, and think, what are the photos I want to take? How do you achieve those? And then you work your way back to work out what camera, and then what ecosystem that falls into, and then what lenses you need from there. That's the most important thing. Don't just take these reviews as gospel from me or anybody else, but do your research from a personal level. Get into your local camera store. Make sure that these things are what you're expecting in terms of size and weight and what they can resolve, and make a decision that way. So we'll have a video coming up about my journey into kind of semi-changing systems. I've still got Fujifilm gear, and I'll talk about how that mixes in together. But for now, are you interested in buying a Nikon Z8, or have you already made the switch into the Nikon Z system? If you have, tell me what brought you into this world and where you've come from. Also, if you've got any questions, just drop them in the comment section below. I'd be more than happy to answer them and help you on this journey, because there may be some people that don't need to switch or have questions to just make sure that it's not an option for them, or there might be people that want to make the switch but want to ask a few questions before they do. More than happy to help. But for now, have a great week, and I will see you next time. Thank you.